Hi, and thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I just spoke for 45 freaking minutes and realized that I hadn't pushed record, so I'm triple checking now that my iPhone is recording this. Okay, so you probably already know, and at least you've seen the title of this video, that Discovery Plus channel has released a 3-part docuseries about the cult I escaped called My Daughter Joined a Cult. But in case you didn't know already, good news! Discovery Plus finally released a docuseries about the cult I escaped called My Daughter Joined a Cult. Now, I really think this is an important 3-piece expose for everyone who might want to know a little bit more of the backstory behind the fraud who calls himself Nithyananda, who I've dedicated the past few years to exposing on social media. I've gone public about the beatings in his residential Gurukul school. I've shared about his sexual predation and the advances he made towards me during a time when he was trying to make me believe that I was an incarnation of Devi and that he was my Shiva and that a sexual relationship was mandatory for my spiritual awakening. You've heard me interview other survivors of his cult about their experiences. And now finally, I feel we're getting the mainstream coverage that we need in order for the world to recognize that he actually is a predator and a danger to society. I think that Vice did a really good job of painting a well-rounded picture, focusing on how his cult was established in the early days, how the initial round of whistleblowers, led by the very brave and beautiful Aarti Rao and the incredibly brave and powerful Lennon Karupan, how they were able to at least initiate in the public discourse the speculation about Nithyananda's double-faced double life, how he portrays himself on stage and on camera as a saffron-clad sadhu who's under vows of celibacy and living the life of Dharma, promoting Hinduism, whereas behind the scenes, he has not only a sex life, but a very disturbing, criminally irresponsible life of sexual predation. If Nithyananda engaged in, say, a mutual relationship with Ranjita, and the two of them are secretly doing it behind everybody's back, pretending that he's celibate, that would be bad. Don't get me wrong, that would be really terrible, because he promotes celibacy and tells all of us that celibacy is the only way for seekers to achieve enlightenment. So it would be a blatant double standard and an abuse of the religious sentiments of those who believe in him. But it wouldn't be that bad from my perspective. I think if he was engaged in consensual relationships with people who know that he's a human and that they're human and that humans do human things, that's one thing. But the fact that he's abusing his position of power and his spiritual persona, convincing people that he's an avatar of Shiva, and then gaslighting his victims into feeling special when he puts a sexual advance on them, or that it's mandatory for them to do this in order to achieve higher spiritual states, that's where it becomes really nefarious. And I feel what he has done, not only to me, but also to my personal friends and to a lot of people who have started talking behind the scenes, and we're all starting to kind of find out about each other, I feel like I'm just one of the grains of sand starting a landslide. Aarti, Lennon, Jordan, and me, we've gone public about the sexual abuse we've experienced by Nithyananda, but for every one of us, there's 100 other people behind the scenes who he's done even worse things to, who are scared to go public because they don't want to be on the receiving end of his character assassinations or his litigation bullying. When Aarti went public, she was slapped with countless lawsuits under really ridiculous, trumped up charges and false accusations of stealing intellectual property from the organization. And Lenin was the victim of false rape cases used to silence him. It's really, if it wasn't so sad, it would be laughable that Nithyananda, through his page of Kailas's avatar clicks, posted a breakdown of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial by saying, "Our takeaway, false accusations of rape can be used to destroy powerful men, especially Hindu gurus." And it's like, guys, this isn't good PR. This doesn't make you look like you're well equipped to handle the true revelations coming out about your sexual predatory nature. It just makes you look like idiots. How can anybody's takeaway from the Johnny Depp trial be that false accusations take down Hindu gurus? It's a big stretch. But what I find really ironic is that the MO of the Nithyananda cult is to put a false rape case or a false accusation against Nithyananda's victims to silence us. Based on the result of that case, the victory Johnny Depp received, if we're going to say one side is the Johnny and the other side is the Amber here, I would say Nithyananda's victims are the Johnny. You know, we've been abused by him. The evidence points to our victimization. And yet he is creating a drama online, accusing us of being the abusive ones. He calls us abusers. But what does a narcissist do when their victim points out their crimes? The narcissist counterattacks and says, "No, you're abusing me by pointing out the fact that I abused you." Nithyananda does that to the umpteenth degree. So Lenin Karupan, who went public and stood very strongly in support of Nithyananda's countless rape victims, even back then in 2009, 2010, Nithyananda had his disciples put false rape cases on Lenin to try to silence Lenin. They put lawsuits for intellectual property theft on Aarti to try to silence her. They launched a character assassination on her where they accused her of being riddled with STDs and claimed that as proof of why she couldn't have possibly been raped by Nithyananda, who doesn't have those STDs. They just make shit up, publish it as if it's true, and then get righteously indignant when journalists come forward and say, "Well, actually what you're saying has no substantial proof." And then they attack those journalists. I think it's very critical that there was a scene in this docuseries showing a journalist who went into the cult because the cult invited him. He went there because they were holding a press conference. He was thoroughly searched. They checked his whole car, everything. And he brought the court summons for Vinay Bharadwaj, who was suing Nithyananda for rape, charging him with rape in the US. And this journalist asked Nithyananda, "Is it true that you're avoiding receiving papers for this court summons?" And Nithyananda tries his typical gaslighting that works on all his brainwashed followers. And he tells this guy, "There has been no court summons. There are no papers." So the guy starts pulling them out of his bag because he's freaking got them. He's got the receipts. He's ready to deliver. And then Nithyananda orders a gang of his disciples to push this man out, to shout at him, to accuse him of trying to poison Nithyananda with anthrax. They accuse him of bringing in a weapon, but he's been triple searched by security before he set foot in the door of the ashram. So they falsely accused the police in Gujarat of showing the kids pornography when they went in there to rescue them. They've accused journalists of trying to poison Nithyananda with anthrax when they've tried to bring him a legal summons. They've accused the Sharma parents of all kinds of illicit crimes to try to deflect the fact that they're just grieving parents trying to rescue their kids from slavery, from human trafficking. Whatever crimes about Nithyananda get exposed, his way to reply is to put a false accusation against those who are doing the exposing. And so I really applaud Vice and Discovery Plus for their brave decision to go forward with this story, despite the harassment and the intimidation perpetuated by brainwashed followers of this cult. If you have a friend or a loved one currently under the influence of Nithyananda's narcissistic psychopathy, and they're in that personality cult and they think that he's God, and you know it's having a bad effect on their life, be there for them. Don't hassle them. Don't send them messages saying you're brainwashed and you need help and you need therapy. That's just going to make them fight you and argue with you. But what you can do to help them is encourage them to think critically. You can encourage them to say, you know what? If Sarah and Jordan really did get caught having sex when they were there in the cult and got kicked out because of it, why do none of you remember that happening? You know? If really this took place, why did nobody say so until they spoke out in a Vice docuseries? Why didn't this rumor come out when they first made a YouTube video together years ago? Start waking up their critical thinking skills by planting doubts. That's how you can get them to break through the cognitive dissonance that exists as a barrier protecting their delusion from the reality. You can ask them, if in fact Sarah Landry is a paid agent of the Vatican, why did she get the Trishul tattooed on her hand? It's a symbol of Shiva and Kali and Hindu mysticism. Wouldn't that kind of go against the teachings of the Catholic Church? Make them think. Right now they're not thinking, they're being thought for. They're being told what to say, told what to believe, told what to do. They don't have the right to their own autonomy. And if you push them to argue with them, they'll argue. But if you encourage them to think about something, it might start to spark the realization of the actual truth. If you really want to help them, ask them, everything else aside, whether it's your spiritual duty to serve this man because you've taken him as a guru, whether he's Shiva or not, whether the Adinam is Adi Kailasa or not, are you happy? Do you feel healthy? Do you feel respected by his administrators? I think this is a very crucial point to ask anybody who's brainwashed there. Do you feel like Ma Pranapriya, who is in charge of that mission in Bididi, do you feel that she cares about you as a person? Do you feel a loving vibe from her, which is the vibe you should get from somebody who has spiritual authority in an organization like that? Is she compassionate when she speaks to you? Does she use loving, tender words, or does she use verbal abuse? If she does use verbal abuse, is that what you choose to experience as your everyday reality for the rest of your life? Do you get enough sleep? If not, are you happy living like a sleep-deprived zombie? Or would you rather experience a little bit of healthy rest and relaxation? Start making them consider that they actually have a right to not like what's being done to them. Help them understand that they have a choice. Let them know it's not a crime to have questions. It's not a crime to have doubts. It's not a crime to think for yourself. And it's not a crime to speak out against abuse. If they get beaten by Achala or Pranapriya or Sundareshwara or anybody else in that cult, and then they're told it's Guru Droha to go public and talk about this beating, let them know. No actual guru who preaches ahimsa, non-violence, would in private encourage violence and then victim shame and tell the victims that it would be their crime against him if they spoke out. That is not how spirituality works. True spirituality is transparent, it's honest, and it adheres to its vows. In the Nithyananda cult, and I've already made a video all about this, so I'm not going to go into all of it again, but I feel it's important to keep this in mind. everybody in the sannyas order, brahmacharis and sannyasis, we all took vows of ahimsa, asteya, aparigraha, brahmacharya, and satya. We took vows of non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, living with a minimal of things, and celibacy. None of those things happen in his cult. Nithyananda tells his male disciples who he's sexually luring into his trap as his victims, he tells them that he had a sexual relationship with his guru and that this will help them break their lust patterns and experience enlightenment. And so they've taken vows of celibacy, but he encourages them to have a sexual relationship with him. That is not satya, that's not truthfulness, that's not transparent. He tells his female victims on the Rudra Kanya team that they are his wives. And he encourages them to do lesbian acts on film and to send him the videos, which he holds as collateral, and tells them if they ever dare leave or if they ever dare speak out, he'll air those videos publicly and destroy their place in society. And because a lot of these girls come from very traditional Hindu families in India, they are trapped by the fear of that collateral getting out, because they know one day if they ever want to marry, no boy's family will approve of a girl who's filmed doing a sex act. There's a major taboo against sexuality in India when it comes to pornography or when it comes to this kind of premarital exploration or experimentation. And I'm not saying this to sex shame Nithyananda's victims. I'm saying he abuses them and then he shames them with the fear of what will happen to their reputation if they leave, because he's holding this as sextortion against them, threatening that if they ever leave, he'll leak it out. It's interesting, like over the last couple of days, since I watched that 3-part docuseries yesterday and into today, I had a flashback to one of the first red flags that I ignored stupidly in 2009 during my very first physical program where I met Nithyananda. Gopal Sheelam, who was called Bhaktananda Swami, he gave a talk on stage where he said, if you come to inner awakening, it's like Hotel California. And he quoted that song, guys. Like, he quoted Hotel California and said, you can come in, but you can never get out. And I was thinking, like, does this Hindu monk actually know what that song means? Does he know that it's about, like, recruitment into a sinister sect that will trap your consciousness? Like, I've heard that it's about Satanism and stuff. Like, does he know that? It's only now, through the lens of 2020 retrospect, you know how they say hindsight is 2020? It's only now that I realize he knew what he was telling us. Maybe he was trying to warn us without saying so directly, but that's what it is. Like, if you join a spiritual organization and they make you sign an NDA, that's a red flag. A true spiritual organization will not abuse you and then fear that you're going to go public about the abuse. A spiritual organization won't do that. A spiritual person will never ask you to do something that you feel uncomfortable about. If you're, forget even the word spiritual, a decent human being will not ask you to take a nude picture unless you are completely free and open and want to, unless it's a reciprocal thing. Only a predator will push you to do something that you're not comfortable doing. Nithyananda is a predator. His organization is not only a cult, it's also a mafia. They will criminally harass anyone who leaves. They will try to make people stay forever. They will try to make you sign contracts promising that you will never speak to ex-followers because they're afraid that we'll all gang up together and speak the truth. They're not afraid of us attacking them. They call it an attack, but It's only somebody who has done a very bad thing that equates you telling the truth to you attacking them. So I'm really excited. My Daughter Joined a Cult is out now. The only thing okay, there are two things I'm disappointed about. One, the subtitles. Please, if you work at Discovery and you're seeing this, or like if you know somebody who works at Discovery, show them this one little clip. Put English subtitles over the Hindi, Gujarati, and Tamil in My Daughter Joined a Cult. We desperately want to know what everyone in it is saying, especially the mother of Sangeeta. I want to know what she has to say. Please fix that. And what Bhuvaneshwari Sharma says, I want to know what she's saying. I want to know what they're all saying. When Lennon does an interview and it's all in Tamil, I want to know what he's saying. Please, please. Like, it's very triggering for somebody who was in Nithyananda's cult, who was sitting there in all the meetings, but not understanding a word of it because it was all in Tamil. It feels like that's happening all over again. So please, please translate it. So that's one thing that's disappointing. The other thing that I find a little disappointing is that the full extent of Nithyananda's crimes were not yet known to us when we gave those interviews. So it does go into a very, very brief piece where I talk about the beatings in Gurukul, but I feel like they should have pulled up a clip of Kalpalata, who's one of the survivors of that Gurukul. She has made videos on her social media about the December 31st beatings. A little clip of that would have perfectly settled the debate where some people don't believe me when they hear a kid describing it in her own words. That could have been included. Something about his human trafficking should have been included. The way that he prostitutes out his Rudra Kanya team to get land and donations from wealthy people in North India. Even though it's speculation, it could have been included because we've heard it from enough people now that we know they're not all going to be lying about it. So I think it's a very good introduction to the crimes of Nithyananda. I feel like it's maybe 1/10 of the way to fully exposing it, but I'm happy that that door has been opened, and I'm looking forward to future whistleblowing. And stay tuned to my channel. Hopefully I'll have some new interviews with people who have not yet spoken out soon. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Sometimes I post updates there. Next week, I get to do my favorite podcast, which is A Little Bit Culty, hosted by Sarah Edmondson and Nippy Ames, whistleblowers of the Nexium cult. So I feel very honored to get to share about the cult I'm exposing to two people who very publicly exposed a cult and won a victory. They put Keith Raniere behind bars. Nithyananda's next. Swamiji, you gave me the instruction to make you go viral, and that's maybe the one Guru Vak I'm still following. So I'm gonna make him go viral, and he will rue the day he beat children, sexually assaulted countless people, allegedly murdered Sangeeta, possibly murdered other people. I mean, he's done so many terrible things right now that I don't see why his story wouldn't go viral when people find out just how dangerous he is. And I hope he not only goes viral on social media, I also hope he goes viral with a red corner notice by Interpol, and that his ass gets dragged back to India, where he will face his day in court and be thrown away forever. So thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone who has supported us in our whistleblowing of the Nithyananda cult. I think we're at the beginning of our victory, and I look forward to seeing that happen. Bye for now.